Hey guys, it's Andrew Grove, aka This Passing, making another replayer video on behalf of cardrunners.com. And my first replayer video of this year was about single raise pots in the big blind. So this one is going to be about single raise pots from the button. And I have three pretty cool hands, and it's about the same kind of format as last time. I have the replayer hand here, and at Evernote I have my Omaha Ranger notes from the hands. So let's go ahead and get into it. And like last time, I'm going to hide my whole cards, so we're kind of thinking about our range in general, and I'll disclose my whole cards and villain's whole cards when it becomes relevant, but for the most part we're thinking about our ranges here. So this was at, I think this is a Zoom 200. And sorry again, I don't know how to hide the names on Horde Manager 2, so if I'm talking about people's games and they're upset or whatever, then I don't know how to fix this. It's not under options or anything, so I can't really make the player names as by position. So I make a standard reason on the button, my button sizing, that's what I usually make it, thereabouts. And villain calls, villain is calling 65% in the big blind versus steel and 3-betting 11%. So if you're looking at how to make his range in Poker Tools or Poker Juice or Omaha Range or whatever program you're using, it would be, I would probably do something like 75% minus a 10% 3-bet range. That seems about right. So either way, we get a paired board, and villain checks to us. He doesn't donk very much at all. He donks about 5% on flops, so I imagine a lot of that's multi-way, although I really have no idea. Or maybe it's just in 4-bet pots or 5-bet pots and there's no money left. So he checks to us, and what do? So I first looked at our range on this board, put in the board texture at the top. This is Omaha Ranger again. I'm stealing about 90% on the button. Maybe it's a little less with the regs and the blinds, but I mean, for general sake, that's about true, I guess. And I just looked at what our range is on the flop with in terms of strong value hands. So I made about four different classes of hands, as you'll see in a second. The first one is the super nutty range, I would say, and that includes ace queen, king queen, and all full houses. I guess I didn't include quads here, but I'll probably include that in check back range. So this is just our overall range overall. Second range is like a set minus, and a set here means trips are better. So that would be, trips on this board is the same thing as a set. So that does not include ace queen, king queen, or full houses. So like queen jack 10 9 8. No, is that a 5-card hand? Queen jack 10 9. Yeah, that's 4-card. I don't play 5-card PLO, but yeah. And then just over pairs like aces and kings. And as you can see, we have about the same amount of sets that aren't super nutty and over pairs as we do our super nutty hands. So that's one way we can consider splitting up our range here if we want to have like betting more polarized and checking back kind of protective-ish kind of. So it would be good to have, like, if we're going to check back over pairs and middle pairs and stuff like jacks, 10s, and 9s, and 8s even, we have trips in our range to protect that, so we're not super capped, even though we are kind of capped in general. So next I wanted to look at, which one was this? This is a sample betting range on the flop. So I have our flop range of our betting frequency would be about 48%. So what I did here is I split my range. I try to make sample ranges for the flop, like betting range and the check back range. At first, here's the betting range. So I have our super strong hands, right? Ace queen, king queen, and the full houses. These are like middle pocket pairs, so it would be any pocket pair between 3s and jacks. And I excluded 9s, 10s, and jacks because they have more showdown value than 3s through 8s. So I put that on. It's like I'm taking like the weaker hands and turning into a bluff, and also have like backdoor wraps like King Jack 10 here. Would be cards that will make backdoor wraps 3, 4, 5 on this board. So you would turn if there's an ace, you turn a wrap, and a 6. I guess that would be a wrap. So like that. And two backdoor flush draws. So any heart or like heart club hands that don't fit into this into the they don't have like a queen in them or whatever. And as you can see, we have about 21.5% of the super strong hands in this betting range, and a lot of weak hands, a lot of bluffs. So it might be a little bit wiser to, if our opponents are kind of paying attention, to maybe check back some of these hands, some of these middle pocket pairs, double backdoor flush draws, and backdoor wrap kind of hands, since we would be kind of over c-betting, I guess. I mean, it'd be really difficult to continue to check raise. We'd have to check raise, or we'd have to 3-bet bluff a lot, I think. But I mean, this isn't like set in stone. It's just to give us ideas for the hand. And next, I have a sample check back range. So I had the sets minus ace, queen, king, queen in full houses. So this would be like the queen, jack, and other queen hands that aren't like super nutty. Our over pairs, aces and kings, because I guess there is some value in betting, but it's kind of good to check them back. 9s, 10s, and jacks, because we don't have to bet fold those hands, and it becomes kind of weird. Like, do we bet flop and then check back turn? It become kind of capped that way too, and it's kind of difficult to balance if you're not really thinking about it. And I also have total air here. So if I'm betting, like previously, like on our betting range, I wouldn't include hands that I could like double barrel with. So if I'm betting like absolute total air, like I don't know, 9, 8, 4, king, like I don't turn very well at all if I don't have backdoor flush draws and stuff a lot. So I'm kind of like double barreling into like I don't have any good blockers or anything really. So I want hands that like backdoor wrap. So if I do turn, if I bet like king jack 10 for example, and the turn's a 9, I can barrel, or like other cards like that I can keep betting. Whereas total air is like if you bet one and done on this board, well, you're kind of easy to play against, and stuff like that. And just to see here, within this range, our check back range, we don't have I mean, if you include like a set and then over pair minus set and then like our middle pocket pair hands, it comes out to about, I guess, about 30%, 33%. So like 1/3 of the time we have a pretty decent hand that we can call a turn with, which is pretty nice. So in this actual hand, I guess I can show my hand now. Show here its whole cards. I had queen 885, so that is in our. And the way I created this, the way I split these ranges is that's in my check back range, and that's what I did. So on turn, a villain bets into us, and we have pretty much the top of our range, right? So of course we're gonna call. But looking more at the turn here, so given our flop check back range, so out of all the hands we have on this turn, we have a set or better 12% of the time. We have like pocket pair kind of hands, like aces, kings, jacks, 10s, and 9s without the set 22% of the time, so that's a decent amount. And we've also turned open-ender and flush draw, open-ender or flush draw 21% of the time. So we can continue that way as well, either by a raise if that's how we want to do it, or by calling if it's strong enough. It's kind of up to you how you want to split the range at that point, but it's kind of pretty beneficial just to see our range at that point, how it is. Anything else I wanted to mention about this? Yeah, and so this is about half the time. This is like 50% of our range that got to the turn we can call or do something with, and it could be even more if you remember from before, where it seemed like we were kind of over betting a decent amount, like from sub range 2 and 3 on this board, on this from our betting range. If we took some of our pocket 8s and some of our backdoor wraps and backdoor like double backdoor flush draw stuff, and put them in our checking range, we would be able to continue even more now. So that's something to consider. So that's about it for the mathematical analysis of this hand. I didn't go into villain's range because it really depends on the opponent a lot, and there's tons of ways to play this board. I just looked at kind of setting up a defensive strategy on this board. So villain stabs into us, and obviously we're going to call at least. I don't see much reason in raising here because we don't get value from a ton, and we keep all his bluffs in on the river, so he could double barrel against us. We're not really scared of any river basically because we can get the flush if the spade comes in, and yeah, I mean we had like the top of our range. I mean we have a really strong hand. A lot of people don't expect you to check back trips on this board a lot if you're betting the board a fair amount of time, which, as I showed you before, you can make a range that you're betting almost half the time. So, and this particular villain is betting, his overall aggression factor is 3.3, his c-bet is 82%, so he likes to bet a lot. So it's very, very plausible that he has air here, or so like a draw or something. So I call, river's a 6, and he fires again, the discount price of $19.99, and we really have no choice but to call here. I mean, maybe raise to get him to spew, I guess you could do, but calling is definitely standard here. We block the straight, we block spades, so he's not gonna have missed spades as much, but still top of our range again, so calling. And very standard hands from villain here. He turned the flush draw on the gutter, and on the river he missed, and he had blockers to the full house versus a presumable. I had my hand probably looks like an overpair, strong middle pair like jacks, or strong underpair to the trips like jacks or tens. So trying to get me to fold that hand, very reasonable on his part. And yeah, that's it for this hand. And on to the next hand. Make another raise from the button versus two, I would say, tighterish players from the blinds. At least the small blind is playing very tight in the small blind, and the big blind is playing 27-7 over 15 hands, and he's short stacking, or if he's, I don't even know if he's intentionally short stacking or not. I don't really know much about him. And they both call. So the way the small blind is playing is he's calling 9% from the small blind versus steal, and 3-betting 9%, so his range is pretty tight and narrow, and I have no idea about the big blind's range. They both check to me, and I have a decision on whether to bet or check. I did make a bet, and let's look into what range I would be thinking about betting here. So on this board texture, if you look at it, with the flush draw there, and given that we're against two players and one player in the big blind could be, check raising pretty liberally, and the small blind has a very tight range, so we can hit this board very easily, like very strongly hit this board. I don't want to be betting too many hands that do bad on getting check raise, so if that's the case, then I'm not going to be c-betting very liberally, because, especially because my range is, I have very wide pre-flop range, so I don't have a lot of strong, super connected hands as part of my overall range that can c-bet on this board. Like, I have a lot of the hands in my range, but I have a lot of weak hands in my range as well, so I'll be checking back a lot. So that's going to make more sense when we look at these numbers here. So I gave myself a pre-flop range of 88%. It was 90% last hand. I'm just, using whatever for this, and as long as it's pretty close. So I made for a flat betting range for myself of this is cut off here. It's supposed to be a two pair. 1 and 3. What that means is the top pair and middle pair are better. Top pair and bottom pair are better. Excuse me. So that does not include 9-6. I would probably check that back because it has decent showdown value, and you really don't want to get check raised with a hand like that. It's really bad. So Jack 6 are better. The nut open ender. So I guess that's Queen 10 and also like Queen 10 or King 10 8, plus the fourth nut flush draw are better. So that's the Jack high flush draw are better. The Queen high flush draw are better, plus a nut gutter. The nut wrap plus a pair, nut wrap plus a flush draw, Ace Ace and nut flush draw, and King King plus the second nut flush draw or better. So those are hands I'm gladly betting and wanting to get action against, and that's about 17.2% of my my range that gets to the flop. And as you can see from the sub ranges, a 2-pair or better makes the vast majority of my range here, about 70%, and the common draws make a little bit more as well. And some of these kind of overlap. Like I'll have flush draw and open ender along with each other. So moving on, villain and the small blind calls, the big blind folds. So we're heads up to the turn, and it's a 10, so it completes a lot of draws, and villain checks to us. So looking at our range here on the turn, and this is like our overall range that got to the turn. We have the nut straight and second nut straight 17% of the time, and if I remember correctly, it's about 12 or 13% is the nut straight, and about 4 or 5% is the second nut straight. We have the nut straight blockers, so what that means is queen queen or king king that's not a straight, about 5% of the time, so that's pretty relevant. And we have top 2 pair, so at this point it's Jack 10 or better, overwhelming amount of the time, 54%. I think I messed up with the simulation here. I should have subtracted the nut straight, second nut straight from this range. So I guess it's not really 54%. It's more like, and I guess if you subtract other straights as well, it's probably closer to about 30%, 33% or so, like the 7-8 as well. But still, like we have our 2 pair hands, we really don't want to be betting a lot here, because I think villain's going to be check calling. If you think about a check call range on this board, it's going to include a lot of like bear wraps and bear straight draws that didn't want to check raise and couldn't because they didn't have the flush draw to go with it. Like, yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. Or like maybe a pair and a gutter or something like that. So like his range is going to have a lot of straights here, I'm pretty sure. So if you think about constructing a betting range or a checking range, I think you could probably check your whole range here to give your 2-pair hands some protection. You could also have, be betting polarized here, which is a really good idea because you'll have a decent amount of straights. You have the nut straight blockers, and you can include like hands like ace king of diamonds, ace queen of diamonds, stuff like that. Stuff that has a blocker to the straight and also has a flush draw to go with it. So you can actually make a hand on the river a nut flush draw and a gutter. Excuse me. So I guess I can show my hand at this point. Show here whole cards, not known cards. So I have 2 pair and a gutter, and I don't block diamonds. So a good plan for this hand, I think, is to check back and then bluff catch a lot of rivers, because we do have a blocker to the straight and we do not block flush draws. So if a blank comes on the river, we can call down pretty comfortably, I think, since we don't block diamonds, and that'll be a decent part of villain's range. So I do check back, and there is that blank. Villain bets, and before I call and show his hand, let's look at what his range is. So moving down here, yeah, okay, you can see the board at the top, and I'm going to move all the way down here. Okay, so pre-flop, like I said, I gave him about 20% and minus a 3-bet, a 10% 3-bet range, and his flop peeling range, it's kind of cut off here because I can't expand this box for some reason in Omaha Ranger, so I just wrote it all down here. It is, he's just going to be check calling wraps, a jack 6 or better, open ender plus middle pair or better, jack high flush draw plus a gutter, and the second nut flush draw or better, like the naked second nut flush draw or better, minus jack 9-9. Like this is his check raise range for value. Jack 9-9 top pair plus the nut flush draw or second nut flush draw and the nut wrap plus a flush draw. And if you noticed in this range, I didn't include a whole lot of check raise bluffs, and I also didn't include a whole lot of bluffs in my betting range for this is because both villains are going to connect with this board pretty hard, and at the same time villain can't check raise bluff too much either because he's got to think that I'm not going to be betting this board super liberally versus 2 players, and that he is the big blind can easily just like shove it in there. Is kind of unknown to both of us. So yeah, this is mainly like we're playing mainly straightforward here in multi-way pots. Is kind of how it usually works on non-lockdown boards. On very wet boards is usually how it plays out. And also too, if I remember correctly, yeah, he does only raise the flop 11% of the time, so he's not really getting out. He's not really overvaluing like 9-6 here or anything. So I think my ranges for him are pretty accurate here. So he gets the turn with his whole range, and that, you know, because it's his whole flop range, and on the turn it's his entire range that gets the river because I check back the turn. So I gave him a betting range on the river of any straight because he probably thinks I would bet Queen 8 there, and he's probably right. The straight blockers because they're really good bluffing hands, and then additional bluffs. So king or like a queen or a king doesn't have showdown value. So that would be Jack 9 or better on that board. Like his two parents, such kind of hands. So if you look at his range here, he has a straight a lot of the time, like 44% of the time. Like that's a lot of the time they can have a straight. So it goes to show, like, you know, how bad of a turn that was for our range. He has the straight blockers though, 24% of the time. That's a lot. That's a lot of like bare queens and kings that didn't make a straight here that he was able to. Yeah, he's able to get to the river with, excuse me. And he also has so many like one card straight blockers that don't have showdown value, like over half the time of that betting range. I think that's a lot. I guess I should have subtracted the straight here from that range. Or no, I did, because I did the two pair Jack and 9 or better. I guess I could have subtracted straight blockers as well to make it more accurate, so we can see everything. Because obviously this doesn't add. This adds to more than 100%. And yeah, so another cool feature of MR Ranger is you could use versus range. So I did my range that got to the river here, which is my preflop range 88% plus the flop range of that's what this F plus the brackets is from my my betting range on the flop in the previous sim I just showed you, and that's how you got my range to the river. So you can see his equity versus my range, and yeah, he was doing so like versus my betting range of the flop. He has like 43% with his check call range, so it's pretty good. Pretty good still on the turn, and on the river with his range that he decides to bet with, you know, it's polarized, you know. So I guess we can look at what he actually had now. So I did call, and for the reasons I explained before, you know, I don't block diamonds. I guess you could include here as well for the sub range for the sub range, the 4 sub range on the river, like miss flush draws. So like a queen and a king, a queen or a king. Plus a flush draw that's not, you know, Jack 9 or better, or Jack 6 or better, whatever you want to have as far as value is concerned, like hands that he would bluff with. And you could also look at how our, I want to get this term right. Some people say reverse blockers. I guess it makes sense. Like we don't block diamonds here, so like if we did have a diamond in his hand, how much more often he would be bluffing and stuff like that. There's lots of cool things you can do on the river here, but I'm not going to get into it. I'm going to instead let you guys look at it. So either way, he did have kings, so the straight blockers, and it makes a ton of sense, obviously. And you always want to go back in your sim to make sure that he was like the hand that he had fits into the range that you were giving him. So where is it? Yeah, the open ender plus middle pair are better, so it does include over pairs. That's kings and an open ender, so the 10-8 on Jack 9. So that's it for that hand. And on to the last hand for this video. It's a hand that played out kind of funny, but I think it illustrates a really important flop concept on these kind of boards that I'll show you in a second. So generation of the button, small blind calls, and we get a after small blind checks to us on the flop, we get a kind of a I'm not sure how people classify these flops, like static but wet, kind of. It's a board where it's very easy for people to check raise on because there's lots of like really good candidates for semi-bluff check raises and bluff check raises on this board. Like you can check raise, bare nut flush draw, or like nut flush draw plus a gutter, or you can check raise like a weak jack or a weak six, blocking made hand combos and stuff like that. And Villain plays kind of interestingly from the small blinds. He employs a pretty interesting strategy. He's over 1.2k hands, so over a decent sample size. He's 3-betting 17% versus steal, and not only is he 3-betting a lot, but he's also calling a lot from the small blind as well, 21%. So according to this sample, he actually plays just as many hands from the small blind as he does in the button. So, and he's also very loose in general overall. He's stealing 97% from the button. So his players on the looser side of things for sure. So given his range is so wide on this flop, and that he's kind of aggressive, he is raising flop C bet 18% of the time, so that's kind of on the higher side, kind of standard, kind of high, I think, for these games. He's going to be putting pressure on us on these boards, I think. So we want to be careful with what hands we're c-betting and what we're not c-betting. So how should I do this? I'll just play the hand out and then we'll go back and look at it. I think that's a good idea. So I check back. He bets on the turn. I call, and the river he checks to us. So what is our range that got to this spot? So if we go back to the flop and we decided to check back, I made my flop range, so it's all the hands minus a betting range that I would make for myself. So I did any two pair or better. The fifth nut flush draw, so that's any flush draw with the 10 of spades or higher, plus top pair or better. The wrap, so that's 3, 4, 5 plus a pair or a flush draw. A nut gutter. So those three hand types are the kind of for value or semi bluffing, or yeah, it's mainly for value. Here's more like the semi bluffing kind of hands. A nut gutter that does not have a flush draw or middle pair or better, so maybe like 2, 3, 5 or 3, 5, 7, 8, something like that. A backdoor wrap that does not have a flush draw or top pair or better, so it would be like hands like king, queen, 10, 9, stuff like that, without spades. And also the backdoor flush draw without middle pair or better. So that range in itself is about 46% of betting range. So my check back range is 54% of hands. And I put Villain's range here in the bottom here, so our versus range kind of thing going on is 38% of hands minus the 3-bet range of 15%. So that's about what he's doing, I think. And we have our check back range is 46% versus that range. That's pretty good. Like, we excluded a lot of value hands, but even still in our check back range, we have so many good hands. Like, we have top pair or better without the, I guess it's just, top pair or top pair and over pairs, without the flush draw 30% of the time. So we'll be checking back a lot of like dry queens, kings, and aces here, which I think is a good idea, as we don't want to get check raised with those hands. And we have the dry flush draw 25% of the time, so we turn the flush a decent amount of the time. And if you've made out what I was talking about so far, you've noticed that we're not c-betting the dry nut flush draw. So that gives us a lot of strength as we get to the turn. And as you recall, Villain stabbed the turn kind of on the low side. It's like $7 to 11. Guess you can read into that somehow. But if you look at our turn range, we do have a lot that can continue with. It's like we have a really strong range. So I made a continuing range to call this bet of the fourth nut flush draw or better. So that's including diamonds or spades here. So for spades, that would be the jack high flush draw or better, and for diamonds, that would be the 9 high flush draw or better. All wraps, all double flush draws, jacks or sixes that have an open ender or better to go with it, or a fourth nut flush draw better with it. So that's either the jack high spades or 9 high diamonds, and top pair or better. So any queen. and this does include like pocket queens and stuff too. So I don't think there's enough. I mean, you can make raising ranges here, and I'll let you guys figure that out on your own. There's way too much to get into right now. But for this example, we're calling pocket queens here. And if you look here in our sub ranges, if you have top pair or better, so a queen or better 68% of the time, that's a lot of hands. So when we check back this strong on the flop, we get to call the turn a lot, which is really good for us. Like, we're not blowing off our equity at all. And yeah, so when we get to the river here, and you can say like if we faced it better, if we are checked to. I mean, like if you assume if we're facing a bet here, we have top pair better on the 3 of clubs river. 75% of the time, that's massive. So if we put any blockers to go with that, or reverse blockers, so like we block the missed flush draws and stuff, we can call down like really easy. If we have something like queen 7-7-8 that didn't have is that a hand we would check back though? Yeah, it is. So that'd be a hand we can call with. I mean that didn't have like diamonds or spades with it. It'd be a really good candidate to call with, and because we don't block the wrap draws he would have either. We only have a straight 5% of the time, so it's not really that relevant because we're betting a lot of our gutters on the flop. We have, and so if we're facing a bet, we could call a lot of the time. That's what this shows. Now, since it was checked to us, what is our range to be betting ourselves? Well, we have 2 pair, top and bottom pairs or better, so queen, deuce or better, almost 40% of the time. So that's a decent amount of hands we could be value betting. Like, I think he could easily find a call with an overpair if he was, checking to us to induce bets like that. And likewise, we have bottom pair or worse 14% of the time. So those are okay hands to consider bluffing with. And yeah, I didn't go too much into the betting range of the river, but that's about the gist of it. So the hand itself was kind of funny. I checked back with the nut flush draw and bottom pair on the flop, which does fit into my check back range. And Villain decided not to bluff the river. I think he assumed that I was going to be calling down too much since he blocked diamonds and some of the straight draws, or maybe he just didn't find a bet on the river. Whether he made a good river non-bluff is up to you. But the hand played pretty standard aside from that. So, and yeah, it was a decision on me not to bet the river as well, because obviously I don't beat a lot of hands with this hand, but I figured I blocked enough flush draw. I blocked a lot of flush draws. I blocked some straight draws and stuff, and I kind of really don't look like I have a value betting hand here, so I decided to check back. But if you look at my range, I do have enough value bets, and this would be a good candidate to in my bottom pair or worse kind of hands to be betting, and I do block straights as well for what it's worth. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys learned some stuff, and as always, please leave comments, suggestions, rants, questions, anything you want in the comment section, and I'll do my best to get back to you. So yeah, until next time, I have a few more videos, replayer videos I'll be making, so look out for those soon. This has been Andrew Grove, aka That's Passing for CutterRange.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. See ya.